So today we're going to talk about the startup pitch as to why and how. I have done a session about a year ago on very detailed mechanics, and I checked, it is on the YouTube channel. So I'm not going to do the same presentation, but I have the link in this presentation. So if you're interested, you can check that out. But we're going to look at the pitch from a little bit of a different angle. So if I can figure out how to move this along, we'll just go from that. Some of you that have been here, you've seen this. What's a startup? It's really a temporary organization looking for a repeatable and scalable business model. So we always want to think about it when we critique or look at pitches from companies. And that's how you also can think about when you develop your pitch. And that will become a little bit more important later on. Some of you also have seen the startup curve. You know, when you first have this idea, you get super excited, and then you realize how hard this is, and you kind of crash down. And then hopefully, you find people that support you, and then you kind of pivot around a little bit. And then eventually there should be this product market fit, and then things will look up again. And this is really the space where UACI works in. So we are here to support you through the crash, back into the up and out. So if you ever need more time with us, please reach out to us, because that is what we do for you. I added my little squiggly lines here because it's not linear. It goes up and down and around and back and forth. And sometimes you may feel like you're in this vortex forever. So again, let us help you get out of that vortex. And what does that have to do anything with pitching? So we'll get to that. So the big question is, why do startups need to have a pitch? So in this case, if you want to put in the chat why you think people or startup founders, CEOs need to pitch. So I want to see lots of notes here in the chat. Type it in, whatever you think why companies need to pitch. Somebody, anybody? Chat is down below. Click the chat. Need to get people to believe in the idea. I like it. Start conversations for funding. Get interest in the company. Yeah, you all have seen me do this, right? As long as you visit live, you'll be pitching. Thank you, Steve. Yes, get money. And remind yourself what you're doing. I like it, Martin. Oh my gosh, that's a good one. So, I love it because the investors want to hear the kind of sort they expect so they can analyze it for risk and reward. Wow, Luther, that's like very detailed. All right. But it's also, I would say, funding, investors, how to get the temporal to real business. Knowing the pitch audience is important. That's right. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I have my little pet peeve about the why. And yes, a lot of people, entrepreneurs, startups immediately think, well, I need a pitch to get investors, which is true, but it's not the only truth. So just doing another little scroll to the side. And this is a quote I just got from somebody. It's from Seth Godin. If you don't know him, you should look him up. He's a great business person and writer. So the question is, when do we get to do the marketing part? And he's saying that's what they heard in the early development of a product. And so his answer is, well, yeah, no, if you don't know that we are already marketing, then you're a little late. So somebody said that in here, you always have to make sure people are aware of what you do. So even though you may not have a brochure or a website or, any of that, pitching and talking about your company, that's how it starts. And that's so important at any curve. And then I put curve up. So back to the curve about that I said earlier, it's this back and forth and up and down. So the pitch is really you start telling the story of your company. You want to tell who you are, why it's you that's doing this, and where are you in this startup journey. And so, now I'm swinging right back to, if you pitch in a formal setting, the people that you pitch to want to know, where are you in the startup journey? And it's fine to be at any any spot. That's as I was putting this presentation together, I thought, sometimes we as judges or, investors, we just want to know, are you still like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, I'm going to cure, also cure cancer. Of course, we do have some companies do that. I will solve world peace. Or are you in this, oh my gosh, I can't find any money and really need money right now, need a team? Or are you in this, we've pivoted a little bit and we think we got something and we have a little bit of evidence? Or are you in this, we got this great market fit and we're ready to go? So that's part of the journey. And you wanna make sure that the audience will understand where you are, because they know, anybody in the area, in the industry knows that this is how it looks like. So back to, investor presentation, there is lots of other opportunities to pitch, formal and informal. And then it's also, oops, wow, very sensitive, sheesh. What is the goal? So at a demo day opportunity, which idea funding, for example, is one, you want to get the prize. You want to beat out the competition. There is maybe 50 that apply. There's maybe 10 or 15 that get to pitch real live. And then there's maybe 5 of the final stage. So you just want to be better than the other 4 because you want the prize. You want the $25,000. Because at that point, you don't, that's the prize. You want that. But you also want to use it as awareness, marketing. People get to know you. If you are doing an investor presentation at like an angel dinner or event, you're not going to get a check right then and there. You want to get to the next meeting. So this is, okay. And sorry, I'm reading. Actually, Amanda and Casey, can you manage the chat a little bit, because it's always hard for me. I'm already a squirrel, so I'm easily distracted. So if I try to read the chat too, I'm like, oh my gosh. That's why I don't pitch for money, because I'm too squirrely. But I like to critique. I'm really good at that. And I guess that's when I throw in. I still see, even with COVID and even with everything going on, I still see about 100 pitches a year. So that's my claim to fame. So that's why I like to talk about this. So there's always a goal that you should really also sink into the presentation. When you develop your presentation, if you do a formal presentation, what is the goal? If it's your one sentence, sometimes it's like, oh, well, you're satisfying the UACI requirement because they want to put a one sentence up. But then really what it is like you're kind of telling the world what you're working on, because when the UACI team talks to people and then they point them to the list where all the companies are and people read it, that's the first impression they have of your company. So consider that. And then very technical, the how, there's timing. So if, again, back to the formal pitches, there's the 1 minute or 30-second pitch, the 3 minute, the 5 minute, 10 minute, 20 minute, verbally, written, with the video, in person, virtual now, with a presentation, without a presentation. Usually when it's 1 minute, it's usually no presentation. Sometimes you get a slide. 3 minutes, you make it a presentations. 5 minutes is when and I'm back to, formal presentations for prices or demo days or investor minglings. Then you get presentations with it. And I'll dive a little bit more into that moving forward, talking about this more formal presentation. And this is really a good one for me. Again, whoever has had any interaction with me and had pitched to me and gets feedback from me, one of the things I almost always say is, I'm not very technical in your industry. I'm not that well versed. So, I'm looking at it more from a business opportunity. And so what I'm saying is, help me connect the dots. So on this one, can anybody, again, in the chat, tell me if you can recognize any of those things, that if the dots were connected, there would be something that's like a thing that has a name. I'm curious, so put in there.
Fish.
A fish, a bicycle, a fish. I like the fish, an elephant. Ooh, look at you, Scott. Oh, I guess, yeah. I'm again a javelina. I like the javelina. Anything else? All right. Gosh, you guys are so shy. It's okay if you can't be wrong. Anything else? All right. So let's just see what we got here. Oh my gosh, there was a house in there, fish. That was fairly recognizable. And then I like the javelina. So this is what I'm talking about. When you present, oftentimes, even if it's in your industry, we see that with the solar price so many times. You think, they're solar people, they know everything about solar. Well, a lot of times they have a niche knowledge, very deep, and then more superficial on others. So you cannot expect people to know the depth of your technology and your area as you are, because you're the expert. It's your startup. So, you need to bring it up. You need to connect the dots for me. So that's why I'm always like, help me, figure out. And sometimes people go right into the tech. I'm like, I don't even know what it is. So it's this connecting the dots. And that's what one of the messages is also: make it easy for the audience to understand what you're talking about. And I know, and no offense to anybody, but especially our academic people, you're so entrenched in your technology. You think that maybe you think that I'm that smart, and I'm not, but I'm not. Where you have this verbiage in your head, and that's your daily verbiage that you use in your daily language, but people like me don't. So you need to bring it down a bit, and that's again why we're here at UACI. That's why you're here, so we can be those like regular people that can help you bring it down a notch. But it's all about connecting the dots. Make it easy for me to follow you along of what your story is and how we get to that. And a couple of presentation styles, and I have shown this before, and I added as long as it fits the requirements. So again, look at what your audience is, whom you're pitching to, and then you want to tailor your presentation, your pitch, your however you talk to that audience. And this is very formal, but last night, if any of you were at the startup drinks, of course, there's no presentations, there's not anything. There's just people with really loud music. So you have like maybe 2 sentences to talk about what your company is and what you do in case you want to make connections. And the Ignite show is kind of falling out of line. So, but there's different things, and I'm still big fan of The Art of the Start. If you haven't read the book yet, recommend it. And I'll be using that a little bit moving forward. So it's the infamous 10 slides, and like I said, I think it's fantastic. For those of you who are brand new, still trying to figure things out and getting your thoughts organized, I think it's a great tool to organize your thoughts and work on, how are the different areas. If you're further along, it's a good way to go back. Are you addressing and progressing in each of those areas? Maybe you're really progressing in your I don't know, financial projections, right? You have it all sorted out, but then you have had some discoveries, and maybe the market has changed. It's been 12 months since you have worked on this. Maybe the market is different, so you may want to go back and fix that. So also talking about when you do formal pitches and presentations, you do want to look at the requirements for your pitch to match what's required. So I used the American Solar Prize. So back to this how, they have to suggest the content, and then they have to see the judging. So what you want to do is you want to go through the list on the right and make sure you hit every single point on that, because when they judge, they're going to go not by the suggested content, they go by the rubric. They say, okay, the video explains a compelling real-world problem and solution. And I did on the left side here, I added the slides from the Kawasaki 10 slides to show you that literally it's, they're all there. So when you start out with that as a basic, framework for putting down your thoughts and your ideas and how to utilize that, it's a great tool. And so you look at that, and then I only did it on this one. I said exciting innovation, so they don't want to just show an innovation. They want an exciting innovation. What is exciting? Well, I don't know, right? It depends on the judge. But so it's up to you to say, okay, and maybe test it out and utilize us at UACI to say, is this considered exciting? Because the judges will go through that rubric and then they will attach the scores. So also in this case, it said 5 minutes. It's a 5-minute video. It's a 5-minute video. It's a 5-minute video. At idea funding, if they say it's a 5-minute pitch, it's a 5-minute pitch. It's a 5-minute pitch. It's back to making it easy. Make it easy for the judges to like you and understand what you're doing and follow the rule. And it sounds a little silly because, oh my gosh, I have so much to say. But from an organizational point of view, you just can't have 6 minutes when all the others have 5 minutes. And we're on a timeline, so you got to fit into those 5 minutes. So, always consider that. I've seen quite a few where people don't adhere to that, and it just doesn't sit well with people. It's like totally not even considering what you have to say. It's more like, oh, everybody should get the 10 minutes or the 5 minutes. Talking about idea funding, of course, strongly encourage everybody to apply. So here's the application link and the judges rubric. So I also took the judges rubric from there. It's posted online, and it is, problem solution, unique value proposition. Sometimes we use different words for that: customer, revenue model, market startup costs, go-to-market team, and additional considerations. So it always ties back to those 10 slides from Kawasaki. I did make a little asterisk here because financial projections is, you have to be careful with that. So there is some ruling through the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, where you cannot or you should not disclose if you're actively raising funds from private individuals, such as accredited investors. You should not blast it out to the world, because then a whole another set of rules falls into place. And typically it's not, at this point, it's still not very favorable for the types of companies that you're building. And we can talk more about that in detail. But at this point, and idea funding makes it clear, do not divulge any terms and such things. But other than that, what you can do instead, you can talk about, and you should in this case for idea funding, what is the startup cost? How much money do you need? And the reason is you want to know that you've thought about it. The number is probably wrong. The numbers for your financial projections 3 years out, in year 3, is probably wrong. But the thought, they want to know you've thought about it. And it's for you good too, because you should think about, are you trying to build a $10 million or a $10 billion company, right? Or somewhere in between, and how do you get there? So this one is the idea funding, and then back to generic judging. That's a lot of, places and areas use that. And then here's this is how I judge. So I judge things, different opportunities at idea funding. I've judged at the Eller Business School things, at the Flint Foundation, all sorts of different areas. And so I look at that, sometimes when I don't get provided anything, I make my own sheet and I list down all this. And then the notes is where you see how judges may look at that. They may not give you a 5 or 6 at this moment. I never do. I always get the numbers later. So I'm like, it's okay. It's about energy. Yay, they told me it's energy. I love it. But it's a little generic, and I'm not sure who has the problem. Is it industry or end customer? I don't know. And then later in the presentation, I may find, oh, it's both. They have solutions for this and that. Solution typically for me, often too technical. Like we are unraveling H-chart things. I don't know. So this one was actually, I remembered one I just watched. So the the unique value proposition was kind of hidden. It didn't come out until we talked more about it, and because I gave feedback, we really discovered that. And that's like hit me with it right away, because I want to know why now, what's so special about you. That's really the unique value proposition. Competitive analysis, if you say no competition, it's always tricky, because either you don't know that there's competition, or it's just a bad product or service that nobody wants. I mean, that's usually my first thought. So then you have to work extra hard to convince me why this is something that there's no competition. Most of the time, the market is way too generic and big. We're in the drug development, it's a $50 gazillion industry. It's like, no, you're really in, prostate cancer, which is a slice of that. So I want to know that you know that and can communicate it. In this case, business model, I'm like, well, actually, this is just oftentimes business model. I don't know how you make money, So eventually you want to make money. So spell it out for me. And then competitive analysis, if it's a growing market, it's great. I remember a few years ago, we had someone and they were proposing a solution for a shrinking market, which is a bit challenging, So it's just for the companies that we serve, we want you to be in a growing market, but at least the person realized it was a shrinking market. So that was good. And then there's other resources that they may find. Financial projections. Sometimes I'm just happy that they're there. It depends on, what I judge. And then go to market, everybody wants one is not a good area. Even if everybody, I think, Scott, I'm picking on you, right? Every dog owner may want this for their dog because, it's minty fresh breath. But then at the same time, I want to know, but who's going to buy it first? Is it me? Probably not, because she has good breath. So, it's all good. But I want to know who are you going to and all that. Management team, so important. Goes back, though, to where you are in the journey. You're early in the journey, you have a couple people, great. What then would be nice to know is, do you know who your next one or two people are? Do you have advisors? Make sure that you convey that message, because again, that just bolsters your story. Oh, it's not just one or two people in the garage. There's like other people and they believe in this, and it's good to have. And then anything you can back to, again, bring it to reality. Investor style, 5-minute pitch.
So good afternoon. My name is Martin Fuchs. I'm the CEO of Metfora, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to tell you about an innovative new diagnostic technology. And it's one that we really urgently need. A recent study estimates that 45% of all Americans suffers from at least one chronic disease. Many of these are not diagnosed, they're misdiagnosed or diagnosed only late in the progression of their disease, when the available therapies are less effective or perhaps not effective at all. The problem is that for many of these chronic diseases, the symptoms are vague and nonspecific. Fatigue and shortness of breath are very typical kinds of signs and symptoms that you get. These are very difficult for the doctor to diagnose. And as a result of this, the patient often ends up coming back multiple times to the doctor, sometimes over a period of years before they're properly diagnosed. So to solve this problem, we take a different approach. We look at something called metabolites. Metabolites are small molecules produced by the cellular machinery in its normal operation. They're reflective of the health status of the cell, so that when a disease is present, the pattern of metabolites changes. We analyze metabolites in blood using something called mass spectrometry, which we combined with machine learning to extract the patterns from the data. And when we do this on samples from patients with known disease, we find that the patterns are specific to the disease. So you can think of it as a disease fingerprint. This means that when we've trained the algorithms, when we test unknown samples and we see one of these patterns, we can predict the presence of the disease with very high confidence. We've done this on more than 150 samples, and we've filed 2 patent applications on our technology, which is unique to us. The customers for this are doctors. Ultimately, the patients will be the beneficiaries, but the customers for our test are the doctors who are treating. And we talked to 100 of these doctors as part of the NSF I-Corps program. And we learned that the primary care physicians are very enthusiastic about the test and see it having major impacts in their practices. We also learned that there could be a direct-to-consumer model for workers in high-risk industries like firefighters and miners who are at high risk for getting lung disease, for example, and they would like to get the test and believe that their unions would be willing to pay for it. So why were the doctors so enthusiastic about the test? Well, compared to the current methods, the Metfora test is minimally invasive. It's a simple blood test. And it's low in cost, $300 compared to many thousands for the more complex methods that are used today. It's fast. You get results in 2 to 4 days, enabling the doctor to reach a diagnosis and begin treatment while the disease is still in its more treatable stages. We also think it's ideal for wellness testing. You can imagine getting this test at the time of your annual physical. And we also see opportunities using it to monitor the efficacy of the treatment that the doctor prescribes for his patient. The market for this is substantial. So testing the at-risk population, that's people who are 40 and older, roughly 150 million people, with an annual test costing $300, equates in this very simple bottoms-up analysis to a total addressable market of $45 billion. As I mentioned, we also see opportunities testing the affected population. That's the 45% that I told you about at the beginning. So here the size of the market depends on the diseases for which we have an indication. That will likely start small and grow over time, but can also become very substantial. Our plan is to launch the test as what's called a laboratory developed test, an LDT, where samples are sent to us and tested in our CLIA certified laboratory. Once we have that available, we plan to trial it in certain beachhead markets. Concierge doctors, patients with a family history of the disease, and workers in high-risk industries. These are all groups that have indicated a willingness to pay out of pocket. In parallel, we'll be working to put reimbursement in place, and once we have what I call CPT code and union contracts, we're going to launch it into the major markets. The team consists of my 2 academic partners at the university, an AI expert, and myself. And we have a number of advisors, including some from UACI and partners that we work with. I'm not going to go through this. I don't really have time, but I just want to mention the STTR grant that we have from the NIH, the I-Corps program that we went through. We pitched at a number of pitch competitions, including idea funding, and we were a finalist in the governor's celebration of innovation. Thanks for your attention. I'm going to open it up to any questions you might have.
UACI is open right now, and it's only 150,000. So if at face value I hear, oh, they need $1 million or $2 million, what's 150 going to do? You as the entrepreneur want to have an answer. If I get 50,000, if I get 100,000, if I get 300,000, I want to know, do I have use for that, and will it make a difference in the company? Because if you just say, I need $10 million to make any impact, then we'll say, well, that's going to be a tall order because we don't see that a lot, but the 1 to 2 million, we see that a lot. And there is ways to, chunk it up, go for this and that and the other, partnerships, especially in medical, life sciences. There could be family offices. And I don't know if, Martin, you've talked to that about that yet. With this, who care about the specific diseases. So maybe that can go in there. There could be foundations. So there's just, all this, and it's a lot of work, but that's where you as the CEO of the company come in, really, taking advantage of the resources, again, that we have, and looking at all the different options and how could that work. And so being a CEO can be a full-time job for that. So Thank you, Martin. Again, if anybody wants to do feedback, I'll send that out with the slides today.